Beardos.
I would really like especially for the people at home, for you to give us a small idea of what your journey was like. I know this is hard. But Cliff's Notes, like, how did you get interested? What was your entry point? What was the most significant challenges, kind of thing? That kind of idea.
Art has always been sort of part of my life, and a bit part of who I am. The creative side has always intrigued me, and I've always looked at creativity as a way of life as well, sort of thing. My entry point.
What would you classify your first? Like that was a drawing. That was a particularly well-curated exhibition. You know, at some point you notice it though, right? A moment. It's a particular moment, right? Usually.
The thing is that I was raised in a family where art was also part of their business.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, and apart from that, a relative of ours was also a renowned artist.
Okay,
and
okay.
Sort of it's always seeing my family speak highly of him and looking at the profession of an artist as something respectable and reputable. That sort of gave me a sense of looking up to the profession itself and to the craft and to the art itself. And my mom is very entrepreneurial. She's a dreamer. My mom, she was always a dreamer. I mean, in 1995, she traveled to New York to an art fair. She found this art agency, printing art agency. She got the license to Malta and started importing these commercial prints in Malta, for example. And my family owned a framing business. The framing business allowed me to meet artists and collectors in one place.
This is very interesting because I think it does speak. So you mentioned two very important things. The first one that I think I don't think we can overstate the importance of this. In your formative years, you found the process of art as being something of repute.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I do believe that that particular subtext is not nearly pushed out into the general public, nor is in any way, shape or form desired by the general public, because it's a feedback loop, right? Like, for example, my father was, I would consider, what I would consider a very original and accomplished painter. And yet, he wouldn't dream of trying to turn this into like a commercial or an actual sort of like a vocational pursuit, because that's what it is. It's a vocational pursuit. Just like not anyone can become a doctor or can become a nurse, because you require that sort of very particular mindset and even temperament, I would argue. So is the temperament of an artist. And trying to live your life as an artist is tantamount to impossible, unless you're just like blessed with unlimited resources, right?
And again, the thing with my mom's uncle, Gabriel Caruana, I think more than his work, which I obviously am very biased on, I think it was his energy of keep pushing.
Yes.
At the time, he was doing something very new. And he obviously did get questioned, but he kept pushing. He created a place that brought people together. He traveled around the world doing what he wants to do, and that for me speaks a lot. And for me it was like a big, and still is, something I really look up to. and obviously I was also privileged to be part of an educational system that promoted the arts, and the arts were at the core of the school that I used to go to.
Where did you go to school? Just
Saint Martin's.
Ah, okay, okay.
And we used to travel every year to Rome, to London, and spend 2 weeks there, immersed in museums, immersed in live drawing, immersed in understanding what an institution is, how the foundation of Picasso works, and really understanding the ecology behind the arts, and not just the actual work. And I think that has played a really important part of my process. And the thing is that sometimes we are too insular and we do not look at what can be done, what is being done, and to what extent you can progress. And when you see the extent to where you can progress, it's become sort of a mindset, an easier mindset for you to imagine your trajectory.
It's less of a leap of faith.
Yes,
right?
it's less. I mean, it's still a risk.
No.
It's a scary one, a very scary one, but there is hope.
But isn't that real of any entrepreneurial thing you might choose? Right? Like opening a business or running whatever you choose to. This is a really good idea. I'm going to give it a shot.
Yes.
You know, you're putting your time, your money, your passion, all of that kind of thing. And it's a big risk. So most things don't work out, right? But again, I would like to underline and highlight this that it seems to me that like your upbringing was so had such a good tapestry. Which is conducive for you to actually cultivate an appreciation for the medium, or the media rather, right? Because it's a sensibility. It's not about paintings, it's about the state of mind need to be to find value there.
Yes.
And even like you're talking about Gabriel Caruana, if you do not know who Gabriel Caruana is, I would heartily recommend you do some research, because I think the term trailblazer is I don't think it's an overstatement. He was doing very daring stuff that contextually, like he was doing it in the 60s to the 70s, right? Like that was, I would say, certainly a milestone in the local artistic sphere. And if you do not have the correct sensibility, or you don't know how to tune to that particular radio signal, like it's challenging today. You can look at a piece of work and say, what the fuck am I looking at? Right? And some people don't know what to do with that. It's like, what does this mean? That's not the right question. It's like, sit, experience, and bring the energy down, and maybe some things will come forward to you, right? That seems to be a way better instruction to give someone who does not know how to engage with, especially that blend of sort of naivist abstract art, right? But again, because the very fact that you were brought up in a place where art actually had a kind of commercial pipeline. Very good thing, because it's practical. It's not just a dream, right? You had an accomplished artist, and you also went to a school that, by your own stating, was interested in giving you the sensibility of art. So, what's your primary mode of thinking like? I know it's a hard one.
It's a hard one because I don't like classifying myself under one umbrella and under one title, because as we've discussed also before, I always, even though I'm always working within the same sphere, I wear different hats.
Yes.
I tend to call myself a creative entrepreneur, a cultural strategist, maybe. That these are two things. A cultural manager.
Yes,
it's a new terminology, which actually a new profession as well. That I've looked up. That I feel I fall under.
So, what is a cultural manager for us?
A cultural manager is a person who is interested in the dissemination of art and culture in multiple ways, in media, in partnerships, strategic partnerships, adding social and economic value to a sector or a particular institution or artist.
So you are a weaver of the tapestry we were previously talking about.
Exactly.
This background at the cultural layer, at the popular layer, that provides an entry into the correct sensibility. That is a very noble aspiration, I would say.
The thing is that the sector is very intrinsic. There are many layers. There are many entry points, let's call them. There is the artistic entry point, there is the communication, there's the business, there's the social impact, there's the community, there's the institution, and like I'm in the middle of all of that.
So you probably have like a good vantage point in the sense that you probably know more about what's happening holistically, rather than like the hyper-specificity of designing policy, for example, or the hyper-specificity of designing an art piece or an exhibition kind of thing.
But the having the holistic knowledge or experience then gives you different perspectives when you are focusing on the artistic, for example, because you're questioning other things rather than just one audience. Maybe you when you are looking at an artistic intervention, you're looking at different targets of audiences and where that artwork can go and where it can progress to. So there are different aspects to it. Maybe we're being too generic.
No. I think you have hit on a very interesting. Your last interjection was very interesting to me, because it felt like you felt the need to defend this generics, whereas in my book, like being a generalist, and the generalist in a scoped manner, right? We are not talking about a generalist that knows how to plaster and also knows how to ride a skateboard, the two things which are seemingly disconnected. We're talking about someone who understands the lay of the land at a particular layer. Let's call it the cultural layer. So understanding that there is policy that informs the economic model that in turn enforces the likelihood of when can an artist monetize their artwork, and why should or why shouldn't they, seems to be like a very coherent place to be, and a useful place to be, because it leaves the artist to do the artwork and it leaves the policymaker to do the policy, and you can act as a kind of like like mouthpiece for both.
The connecting point.
Yes.
But it's also like very hard for me to sometimes explain this because it's like I don't fit in any of these boxes.
Yes.
So even when I am asked to sort of put in a title in a bio, I always refer to this connecting point.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that even though like my place is there, I also obviously specialize in art advisory, for example, and gallery management and curation. Yes. But that middle point, that connecting point is where I really have discovered through time. And like I didn't, start 10 years ago and said, I'm going to be the connecting point,
I am going to do everything. No, exactly. This thing emerges, right?
Exactly. When I opened, I started really opening the gallery when I was 25 years old. And purely it came through an idea of me wanting to internationalize local artists in art fairs. I used to visit these art fairs previously. I used to also take part as an artist, funnily enough. And I was very reserved on this.
What was your medium, if you don't mind me asking?
Painting. It was horrible.
It was horrible. Very good.
But I learned a lot. I used to exhibit in the States. I exhibited in the States 3 times. And this experience has taught me a lot. And even though I do not resonate with the work I used to do then, I used to do well. Well enough. And
from a commercial point of view, kind of thing, or
yes, from a commercial point of view.
Very good.
And when I used to meet all these artists in Malta and saw their talent and their potential and compared it to what I was seeing elsewhere, you know, it just I wanted to take them with me, sort of thing. And I transformed my dance studio into a gallery with the scope of taking these artists to the first art fair in New York. And that's what I did. Like 1 month, 2 months actually after I opened, which I had pre-planned, I took them to Art Expo New York. And then eventually I stopped doing my work because I was getting so much fulfillment and satisfaction from you know, helping and promoting and selling.
And also I think you found a place where you were actually excelling by your own merits.
Yes, and it was like a niche as well at the time. And that's how it started. And then the gallery evolved. I then partnered up with an international business partner. We opened 3 galleries and 1 in Thailand, and then we stopped that partnership in 2018, and I focused on opening a platform. So
Arts ID.
Arts ID. So I've self-discovered where I truly belong through all these phases. And through mistakes and learning, and you know, so it's not that I woke up and decided to be.
So just see if this is a good encapsulation. So you were brought up in such a manner that you had an appreciation for, let's call it, art. You gravitated towards developing what would be called an artistic voice. Found that you do not resonate too much with this, or maybe it was the wrong voice, right? Maybe it was the wrong time to develop the voice.
It was the wrong time.
So is this like, am I correctly listening and looking into this, that there is some work on the horizon?
No, maybe when I'm 60.
Okay, fair enough. But after at some point, because of your foraging into the more commercial side of the process of art, you discovered, I think, a deeper appreciation for local talent, because you can, it contextualized it for you, I'm assuming, right? That's why you say, Lestrina, that's a really good piece of work, kind of thing.
And the thing is, even though, like, I always look for international opportunities and trying to expand myself beyond the local. But for some reason, the satisfaction of working with local artists and sort of having that motivation to push them forward into something bigger. The satisfaction of that is, for me personally, is much greater.
Yes, I can see that.
And it's not financial. It's nothing about. It's just purely the sense of being able to, being obviously a bit patriotic, which I don't necessarily call myself that.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
But I'm genuinely interested.
The better angels of patriotism, right?
In the person. and their work, obviously,
Yes,
but
yes,
in the
yes.
person and the potential of that person and where can it go, and not limiting ourselves just because we come from an island and just because we have less opportunities here, because the world now is very accessible.
Of course.
But sometimes we still feel we don't belong.
Yes, yes, yes. So maybe a more of a nuanced question here, but like, considering that you've made your journey through pushing people outside of the local veneer, do you notice any general commonalities in the voice, the kind of stories, maybe the kind of aesthetic considerations? I don't know, because like, for example, you can kind of tell it if it's a Russian or a German who's doing the painting most of the time. And if you can't, you can easily say that, maybe this is because like they spent a lot of time here as opposed to here.
Yes, and also my clients noticed as well.
Please.
In fact, for example, once I had a client who was looking for pop art.
Okay.
And it was quite hard for me to find pop art in Malta, actually. So the aesthetic, and obviously an artist absorbs everything that's around him, the light, the construction,
the cultural
situation,
tapestry.
the cultural tapestry, the political tapestry,
of course.
everything. So of course, even in the thematics and narratives of exhibition, you can very much see a similar language and connecting points. Every artist has their own visual identity.
Yes.
But the language, they also have their own language, but the language, if they are speaking about their surroundings, obviously, and the same artists are in the same surroundings, they're going to have similar thoughts, similar experiences. So maybe not the visual as such.
It's a vibe thing,
yes,
so to use modern parlance.
Going back to the aesthetic, as I was discussing about the pop art, like you'd find a lot of pop art in London, in New York. There is that electrifying energy, color. Here it's more subdued sort of thing. It's more maybe natural when it comes to aesthetic. Maybe there is this also need to touch with different materials.
You've been involved in the Biennale this year. How was your experience?
It was received extremely well. We've been listed on top 10, 11 pavilions on Forbes, on multiple magazines, on our Tribune. It was a new experience as well for Malta, because Matthew Attard is the first Maltese solo artist representing Malta. We also had the first female Maltese curator, Elise Tonna, and we had a digital experience. We have an interactive experience, and we have a very interesting narrative and concept that touched a lot of different cultures, because people were relating to the idea of ship in different ways. So it was I think it was very rewarding. I think we are still in a phase where we're still digesting everything, especially Alice and Matthew. And we're still in that phase. We're still digesting it all. It ends now in November. But I mean, we're also the youngest team.
That's all good things, those, right?
Which for me, I think it was a privilege to be part of that team, because I think it was needed that even for the artistic community to sort of have something to look up to, and that it is possible, even though you are young and we are, still in our, let's say, early years of our career, it is possible to be at that peak level.
You can perform. You can perform at the highest level.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very good.
That was a very important part for
Incidentally, both, I think, Matthew and who was his collaborator?
Joey
yes.
He's the software developer.
Exactly. So Joey, Matthew, and Elise had come here ahead of the Biennale to check whether or not the thickness of the lines would translate well to the LED, which was very interesting because it's like we got a sneak peek and our very own little sort of show in many ways, which was kind of very cool. I mean, it's nice to be of some utility on even at that level. So I'm interested because we've mentioned Matthew, and Matthew is notoriously working in digital now. How do you see the artist acclimatizing to this new technological layer?
I see it more as a medium.
Yes.
Right? It's another tool.
Yes.
And it's a playing field as well. It's a very interesting one. So Matthew draws with his eyes using an eye tracker. With his gaze. He looks at the object. In this particular case, they were ship graffitis etched on West chapels in Malta. He tracks the data of his eyes, and this data is transformed into a digital drawing.
Exactly. So yeah, we were discussing virtual reality as this sort of emergent medium, and that's because it's so close to what we do here, kind of thing. And frankly, we are doing it as well. I would be very interested to see and explore the ways you are seeing it come online, if at all, especially at the virtual reality layer. So something you'd wear and you're immersed in a 3D space, a digital 3D space.
I think COVID, for example, highlighted this intersection of experiencing art through technology quite a lot. In fact, a number of companies emerged using VR and art galleries, virtual spaces. Even when you go into a physical exhibition, you literally have a VR set to experience a digital piece. In terms of where it's going to go, I think one cannot replace the other.
No, for sure.
However, I see it like just like we have online spaces. Just that online space would have a different experience.
For sure. And I would say that, like, just to echo your point, because I'm in complete agreement here, the same way that looking at a photographic print and looking at a painting are the same action. You're looking at a flat piece of thing, right? Both of those things are completely different, right? They both, the best exponents of the media, revel in the medium and its limitations, kind of thing. They do not try to. So I would say virtual reality can emerge as yet another way of experiencing this sensibility, if done well.
Yes, I mean there's a lot to explore.
Yes.
There was a period where there was certain resistance,
yes, of course.
But digital and VR and it's being very much embraced within the creative industries as a whole, obviously. And
I think there is maybe, like, famously when photography emerged, like a lot of artists said, this is the end of whatever, and then when digital photography came, it's the end of photography. Which, in fairness, it was kind of certainly a downturn, but we've seen resurgence of traditional photography. So maybe VR at its best can bring new sensibilities to bear, sensibilities that previously weren't available. But I do believe that the fear, the wariness, so to speak, can be speaking to a deeper frustration with the way you make your life happen as an artist, right? So I think sometimes the fear manifests itself against the medium, but it is because there is such a disconnect in the way you can behave and live as an artist, kind of thing. Do you think that's a fair point?
I think positioning yourself with your work, respectively what you're doing, just as we were speaking before, Gabriel, there was resistance,
yes,
you know?
yes,
but
yes.
he believed in himself. There is authenticity. You remain true to who you are and what you're doing, and automatically that sort of energy also starts pulling people.
It acts as a kind of like call.
Yes, it's
people.
a magnet.
Yeah,
and
so this also authenticity as a clarion call for your audience,
yes,
kind of thing. That's very interesting.
Having an important, like having a message to it, you know, having communicating the process is also an important part.
Interesting.
Because people might not relate to the end product, but they will definitely relate to the process.
Okay.
And the thought process, because it's more human.
Yes. So this might be actually a point of contention, because I'm interested in exploring it, because I appreciate the context of the artist, and I appreciate that the context of the artist can bring a new method to engage with the art. So I don't resist that, and I do believe that some of the most meaningful, like recently, very, very recently, like a couple of days ago, I came across the Marina Abramovic, The Artist is Present, right? And by sheer, like, the randomness of the algorithm, it was the story of her lover coming to me. This was something I had completely missed. I just thought she was having a very...
sensory experience.
Yes, a very high sensory experience. And she was reacting to this potential person. So very later on, a couple of days ago, did I understand that these were estranged lovers that were doing this magnificent art piece that smacked of hubris, realistically, right? Like, look at how big our love is, right? We will cross the wall of the Great Wall of China from points and meet at the center. And in the process, this person becomes unfaithful and gets the guide pregnant or something. And they hadn't seen each other in such a long time, and at this part, like, that just enriches the experience. Now, even though I believe that to be true, if the art piece is not able to stand on its own decontextualized self, how does one find a balance there? What would be a guiding principle, you think?
I just feel that art is sort of food for the brain.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes we ourselves create that narrative of the piece, and that is the sort of generative form of how art transforms itself, because it transforms itself through the interpretation of others.
Yes, exactly.
And the multiple interpretation of others come from our own experience.
Yes.
So having an art piece standing on its own and being interpreted differently by everyone else is still doing its job.
Of course.
Even if it's not transmitting the actual narrative it was actually born from.
Yes. Which is exactly where my pushback lies. So for me, that generative process is the quintessential experience of the art. The message of the artist is incidental. The context is incidental. And my fear is that when one is too readily forthcoming with the context, look, this is my message, this is why I did this, it steals away from the audience that necessarily revivifying or like collaborative effort that the art piece relies on. It kind of kills the art piece, and kills the art piece. So this is very, very grandiose talk, but you know what I mean, right? It's stealing something away from the audience by giving them too much information.
Yes. It's a balance.
Yes,
right? And it also depends on the artist, because if like the process is really part of the actual finished piece, and it's very intrinsic, and there is a very strong message that the artist wants to send across. I mean, we have works dealing with very
strong subjects.
So it really depends. However, you are still seeing that strong subject being communicated in a different language, and that is the visual language.
Or what, like it could be music, right?
Exactly.
Or whatever, like a VR experience, right?
Exactly.
Maya, explain what Maya is to the people around you, and please note that I am a member.
MEA is the Association for Entertainment and Arts in the Creative Industries in Malta. It was born during COVID.
Oh, of course it was.
From a very much collective need to voice our challenges, the challenges of the sector. There are many challenges in the sector, but there are also many opportunities.
That's good.
And it's the first and only association, independent voice, that tackles so many industries within the creative sectors. And its mission is to protect, but also help the industry and the sector grow.
Okay. I like how proactive MEA tries to be. I know that there are a lot of challenges, and the challenges are the fault of no one in particular. They are the realities we need to operate with. I do believe that creatives, should they turn their head towards this seriously as if it was a creative problem, they would, like, good solutions could emerge.
I think MEA belongs to everyone.
That's good.
It is really important for us that everyone feels that they're part of a community, and that we're here to, I will not be here maybe in 2 years. It's something that will continue to evolve, and everyone should, in a way, be part of this process of evolution of the sector and progression of the sector. I really believe in the term legacy and leaving something behind. And when obviously this is MEA's voluntary work, but I do believe in the greater picture. And I think the message that we should send across is, yes, we should think of the present and ourselves, but we should also think of the bigger picture and where we can arrive together. Because if we keep on looking just at what we are doing and not looking at how we can work together, we will always remain in the same place. And this has proven itself during COVID, because everyone needed to come together, and things actually were happening very fast and very, very, very
because there was that commonality.
There was a commonality. And today it's harder because obviously everyone is busy. And we need to find that common ground that brings us together to sort of focus on specific things, and they don't need to necessarily be sector specific, because there is a lot of overlapping, such as the creative spaces, the rehearsal spaces, professionalization, tax, licensing, copyright.
Certainly the community aspect on its own, to me, is like, if there ever was something that is clear in my mind that needs to be changed, in the sense that, like, we need to start moving towards a more holistic, creative commons, so to speak. Not with the intent of building some sort of club, you know, because clubs have gatekeepers and all that kind of nonsense. But the idea of having diversity of ideas, diversity of experience, diversity of skill sets, having a rich tapestry of community that you can lean on, even just to listen, the kinds of conversations that you are not expecting are like you very well said before, you feed on those things. Even if you feel, it's certainly wrong, I've got opinions, right? It's part of it.
It's part of it.
It is part of it.
And sharing of those opinions is very important.
Yes.
I think having these spaces where we can exchange our thoughts, our experiences. Sometimes within this industry, you can also find yourself very lonely.
Yes.
So having that place where you know that you're not alone, you know, struggling with so many projects, because most of us work project-based, and that in itself has its challenges. And having that space is really important.
But that space needs to be built in the sense that, like, this is going to sound a little bit weird, but space for that space needs to be available in your head first.
Yes.
So you need to feel reasonably good about going outside of your comfort zone and going to meet, or rather go expose yourself to what's around you and try to be as forthright and forthcoming as you can, right? Now, some places are a little bit, might not be exactly the kind of palette you prefer, but I would say that that is a luxury a lot of people think they have and they don't really do. If you just isolate yourself, your work becomes poorer for it. Your mental health becomes poorer for it. People saying no or not agreeing with you is the best thing that can happen in your life, right? Because if you are gracious with it, you might even ask why and get an answer. And maybe you can work with that. And it feels to me that part of the insular mentality, which is exemplified in our island, by definition, I would say, is exactly this. Like, no, it's me, and this is my experience, and that might be very, very noble and forthright, right? But still, it's poorer for being so.
Yes.
It needs that pushback.
100% agree.
Right.
100% agree. And even it's how you also push yourself and present yourself. And there's also this element of trust. This element of trust and judgment.
Yes.
And not being so on the defensive sometimes, and being more open to this feedback, but not just feedback, but even hearing others. Because I've recently completed a master's in London, and the thing that was the most sort of educational were not the lessons, were actually hearing all the experiences of my colleagues, my peers, and their experiences have given me a lot and taught me so much and made me question multiple times where I am, what I am doing, why am I thinking this way, why am I not analyzing certain things, certain, you know.
You make an assumption and just go with it,
exactly.
Right? Yes.
So, and we also get very much sort of used to a certain routine.
Of course.
And pushing ourselves outside of that routine and challenging that routine is important.
Yes, I think that process. So most of the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, like if it's not as common as I think, but especially when I'm doing, like, let's say something very like some design work, you know, it's stuff that needs to happen. It needs to be as good as I can make it and as quickly as possible, kind of way. Especially when you're thinking across a variety of let's say media, and so you've got your banners, your Facebook thing, your Instagram stuff, all of this sort of like this stuff. let's not denigrate it. But when you're foraging, you're doing that prospecting stage where you're looking for what the idea might look like, and you hit on something, and let's say it's a way of making the text cast a shadow, for example. And this is literally what happened with one of the designs I actually had to do recently. What put me in the right direction was the shadow. By the time I'm at like trying to figure out what the rest of the designs look like, I realized that the shadow needed to go. And I was resisting that for like subconsciously for so long because that was the solution. It wasn't the solution. It was a very close milestone to what the solution was. And the moment I removed this fundamental assumption, which was, of course, I need the shadow wasn't part of the solution. And it's this like I would argue that if I had like a couple of designer friends at the ready there to speak, they would have pointed like the shadow shouldn't be there, And so speaking to this idea of community. Now, in fairness, I do believe that creatives are by definition more sensitive, right? So they are a little bit, so let's not say we are a little bit more ready to be defensive for very good reasons. For very good reasons. Because transgressions are real as well. That does not mean that because the transgressions are real, one should retreat and never look for fruitful pushback, not conflict. I've heard this very interesting, I forget where I heard it, but it's such a beautiful encapsulation. It's like, listening is not an act of submission, right? So to be strong enough in your convictions and to let the criticism or the pushback come and actually listening to it without maybe immediately going onto the defensive is not an act of submission. You can listen to someone tell you, I really don't like the way you drew the hand. I really don't like the colors you chose. And if you're smart, you ask why. Because sometimes because that's the color of my Nana's curtains, and I don't like that color. That's a very good reason, but that's not a reason that is relevant to me, so I will just do away with this. Thank you very much for engaging with it, though, right? I think asking why and being able to take a step back is it's useful even at the entrepreneurial level, right?
Yes, of course.
By your own estimation, what is the kind of mindset one needs to have to perform as reasonably well as possible in this industry, in this sector?
I think you should never limit yourself. And that gives you this mindset of exploring.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And keeping yourself open to others, to ideas, to challenges.
Exactly.
Because sometimes, and most of the times, the challenges are not small, but being open to the idea of these challenges and what they can teach you and what they will give you once you manage to fight back.
Even if you just like, let's say, to echo your point fully, even if you fail in whatever endeavor the challenge is, the process of engaging with the challenge and whatever you learn through that process, if you're tuned to the right sort of like attitude, you'll just get something out of it.
When I go into a project, in fact, lately I've been part of this new project which will develop in the coming years. In the first meeting, this was the first thing I said. Let's not let money limit us, for example, because sometimes that is the starting point when it shouldn't be.
Yes.
The starting point should be the long-term vision, and then setting a plan towards that.
So what I hear there is that the ability to say, look, I'm going to take this undertaking, I will try to limit it as little as possible, and then just follow the journey. That's basically what you were saying, right? Yes. Because, and I think a good subtext to that is that your emergent knowledge, which is when the moment you start undertaking this impossible thing, will inform your ability.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So if you limit it a priori, you are, of course, you probably will reach that because you've encapsulated, you parameterized it with your initial knowledge, not with your emergent knowledge. I think that's a very, very shrewd and well-made point.
And obviously hard work. I mean,
yes, no, of course.
You have to be, ready to roll up your sleeves and work.
Yeah, and do the work.
And do the work. But when you love what you're doing,
yes,
and there is so much behind it, it doesn't feel like work.
Yes,
at all.
Yes. And you have like your motivation is there.
It's tiring. It's exhaustive. It's obviously stressful, but it's not. It becomes part of your life.
Yes, and it enriches your life.
Exactly.
So on that note, madam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This was very nice of you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap.
Beardos.